Hi, it's Carolyn here. Before you start listening to this episode, I just wanted to let you know that I'm currently in Switzerland doing my very own and long overdue trip around the country. I'm visiting some of the most popular destinations in Switzerland, as well as a number of lesser known places. And I'm travelling around by both car and train. If you'd like to follow along with my Swiss travels to see where I am and what I'm doing, make sure you follow Holidays to Switzerland on Instagram. That's holidays2 Switzerland. Here I'll be sharing photos and reels as I go, and I'd love you to follow along. Now, settle back and enjoy this episode.
Are you dreaming of visiting Switzerland? Planning a trip to Switzerland is very exciting, but it can also be overwhelming. How do you choose which of the many scenic cities, towns, and villages to visit? Which mountaintop excursions should you take? And what's the best way to get around Switzerland? And of course, how much of the country can you realistically see within your time frame? If you've asked yourself any of these questions, this is the podcast for you. This is the Holidays to Switzerland travel podcast, and in each episode, your host Carolyn Schonnefinger chats with Swiss travel experts to answer your most commonly asked questions, provide practical tips, and take you on a virtual visit to the most popular destinations, and of course some hidden gems to help you plan your dream trip to Switzerland. And you'll hear plenty of conversations about Swiss cheese and chocolate too. Are you ready to plan your trip to Switzerland? Well, let's get started.
Hi, welcome to episode 45 of the podcast. I'm your host, Carolyn, and I'm so glad that you've joined me today. If you're a regular listener of the podcast, you'll be aware of Switzerland's fantastic public transport network, as there have been numerous episodes about the benefits of travelling around Switzerland by train. But there is an alternative way to travel: renting a car and doing a road trip. Having your own car allows you to stop wherever you like and for as long as you like. With your own car, there are no more timetables to adhere to, and your itinerary can be as flexible as you want it to be. Regardless of whether you prefer to have your itinerary planned out exactly, or you're more of a go where the wind takes you style of traveller, renting a car in Switzerland offers so many advantages. My husband and I have rented a car in Switzerland on many occasions, and we've enjoyed the freedom and flexibility that having a car offers. So if driving is your preferred mode of transport, but you're struggling to come up with the perfect itinerary, I've got the solution for you. In today's episode, I'm welcoming back Livio Goetz, Director of Switzerland Tourism for Australia and New Zealand, to chat to him about the Grand Tour of Switzerland. The Grand Tour of Switzerland is a scenic route made up of 25 different sections or legs, which highlights the best of Switzerland. It covers much of the country and visits 44 of Switzerland's top attractions, crosses 5 mountain passes, visits cities and alpine villages, and passes 22 lakes. It really is the perfect road trip. So if you need the road trip of a lifetime, you need Switzerland. As always, I'd like to thank Livio and his colleagues from Switzerland Tourism for sponsoring the podcast. You can find out more about the Grand Tour and lots more Swiss travel information and inspiration on myswitzerland.com. And you'll hear plenty more tips and advice about the Grand Tour from Livio. So let's get into it and hear what he's got to tell us. Grüezi, Livio. Welcome back. It's great to have you on the show again.
Grüezi, Caroline. Good to be back. Thanks for the invite.
My pleasure. Now, there's a brand new campaign being run by Switzerland Tourism, which features none other than Roger Federer and the Hollywood actress Anne Hathaway. And in the short film, Roger and Anne discover that not even world-famous stars like themselves can upstage the Grand Tour of Switzerland. So for those listeners who haven't heard about it before, what exactly is the Grand Tour of Switzerland?
So basically what it is, the Grand Tour of Switzerland is nothing else than a journey of discovery that packs all the highlights of the Switzerland into a road trip. So it is essentially a road trip around Switzerland. And the whole tour takes you on a trip of 1,600 kilometers to the most beautiful regions of Switzerland. And it shows you how diverse, multifaceted, and spectacular our country is. So it's a really great way of exploring Switzerland. And it's more than that. It's it's a travel through 4 different language regions across like 5 alpine passes, 22 lakes, and you visit more than all the UNESCO World Heritage sites as well along the trip. So it's in other words, it's basically an intensive taste of Switzerland and experience of the most beautiful spots of our country.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. So, how long should visitors allow if they wanted to do the entire Grand Tour route?
So it depends on a couple of factors. So let's say when you drive at least 5 hours a day, we recommend you plan at least 7 days to complete the core route, so the main route. But then, of course, depending on your entry point from the border, you may even need more time. So the effective duration depends on whether you tend to speed along or you make it more leisurely and more stops along the route. But my recommendation would probably be to plan around 10 to 14 days to really see all the highlights and also enjoy the whole trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you're going past some of those places, you'll definitely want to stop. So if you're trying to pack too much into each day, it's going to be difficult to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think one of the great things too about the Grand Tour is that obviously you don't have to do it in that 7-8 day period like you mentioned. And I guess you can just do selected legs of the route too if you want to. So
that's right.
Yeah, if you do only have 7 days, but you don't have time to do, or you'd prefer not to try and pack in the whole 1,600 kilometres, you can just choose a few legs that appeal to you.
Absolutely. Even if you're on the sort of passing through, let's say in Switzerland, you can even just do like 1 or 2 days or 3 days and just choose the best section for you. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are some of the highlights of the Grand Tour?
Oh, that's a really hard one because there's something for everyone, because as you know, Switzerland is such a diverse country. You can drive from the palm trees in the south to winding alpine roads in Graubünden, Ticino or the Valais. Then it's the tradition and the ancient customs in the eastern part, the medieval small towns around Fribourg, Morten. And then you go to the western part, the vibrant cities as Geneva or Basel up north. There's so much to see. But I would say some of the highlights along the Grand Tour are definitely Lucerne, which is located in central Switzerland, with its beautiful old town, the Chapel Bridge, the water tower. So that's definitely one of the highlights, I would say, of the Grand Tour. And the second one would be the Jungfrau region, which is not far from Lucerne. People know it probably from the town of Interlaken, the Jungfrau Joch, which has got the highest train station in Europe, or the Schildhorn just next door, which is absolutely stunning.
Yeah, great. And I know another site that's very popular with international tourists is the Rhine Falls, and that also is part of was along the Grand Tour route.
Yeah, that's right. It's not far from Zurich. So a lot of people, they visit Zurich and then they do a day trip, or maybe they even stay the night around the Schaffhausen area at the Rhine Fall, which is a beautiful place to visit as well.
Yeah. So Lucerne there and Zurich that you just mentioned as well, there's cities that are included. There's the smaller alpine villages. You go over mountain passes, you go past lakes. So there really is something for everyone.
That's the beauty of it. Exactly. It covers the whole country, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Now, as listeners to to many of our podcast episodes would know, Switzerland is famous for its public transport network, and lots of people tend to travel by train when they're in Switzerland. So why would you encourage them to consider a driving vacation and do their own Grand Tour?
Well, I suppose it just gives you a bit more flexibility, so you have really the possibility to discover the whole country at your own pace. Like I said before, you can spend a little more time in a place if you like it there. Or if you say, okay, maybe the cities are not for me, you just go on to the next stop and so on. That gives you this sort of flexibility, and it just gives you the option to see different places and landmarks at your own speed, at your own pace. And really, the Grand Tour allows you to discover Switzerland's top highlights, but also the hidden gems in one road trip. So that's the beauty of it. And let's be honest, at the end of the day, you can always park your car and hop on a quick cable car on a short train ride to somewhere. Feel free to combine it. That's the beauty of it. So you can really explore the whole country during that trip.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the difference, obviously, between traveling by train and car is sometimes when you're on the train, you go past a beautiful lake and you think, oh, love to stop and have a bit of a look around there, but obviously the train's not going to stop just for you. So with the car, you have that advantage. You can actually stop and have a wander around or have a picnic or take a few photos before you continue back on your journey.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
Very flexible. So now that people are ready to book a car or to rent a car and do their own grand tour, when they get to Switzerland before they start their driving adventure, where can they find, where to go, maps, and find out all the information and the distances about their trip?
That's a very good question. And I like to promote our own website, which is just a great hub for all the information about Switzerland in general, but also in terms of this road trip. If you go on myswitzerland.com/grand tour, you'll get like a whole lot of information about the different legs of the tour, what to consider when driving in Switzerland, basically all the information you need to plan your grand tour trip. What we also have on that website is an interactive page where you can see a map of Switzerland with the different legs, the highlights, the hotspots, where to stay, what to consider, etc., etc. So just you go on myswitzerland.com/grand tour, and you'll find all the information you need.
Okay, so we've arrived in Switzerland, we've got the car and we're ready to hit the road. How do we know that we're following along on the right route for each leg? Are there particular signs or things to let us know that we're on the right track?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Grand Tour can be traveled in all the different directions, like we said before. So you have this flexibility. We at Switzerland Tourism, we recommend to make the journey clockwise. So this is especially true in cities with one-way streets or for motorway access roads. But in any way, I mean, the Grand Tour route is completely signposted in a clockwise direction with, I think, about 650 official signposts. So, people traveling along the Grand Tour can easily find their way along these signs. And in addition, the Grand Tour roadmap and a touring guide can also be ordered on our website. So that, gives you this sort of security when driving around. But then also from May the 9th, we have a brand new Grand Tour app, which will also be available in App Store. And this allows guests to navigate their road trip through Switzerland even more easy. You have the app on your phone and you just check out where you are and where you go next. That's pretty straightforward. And so I could give you the links, but you can also probably add them to the notes later on. But it's the direct web link will be myswitzerland.com/grand tour map. Or if you want to check out the app, which is available as of the 9th of May, that will be myswitzerland.com/grand tour app.
Okay.
So that's all pretty straightforward.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I have a copy of that book that you mentioned, and it's fantastic. So I think it's great to have a look at that in advance before you head off on your trip, because you can sort of plan out your route a little bit. But the app sounds fantastic to have, once you're actually in the car and you make sure you're on the right track. And those signposts that you mentioned, they're quite distinctive too, aren't they? They're a brown colour, so they stand they stand out from the regular road signs.
Yeah, you can't miss them. I mean, it's you'll see it's not a regular road sign. It is brownish signpost saying this is the Grand Tour, and just follow those signposts really, and then you'll be fine. Yeah,
great. Now, there's plenty of spectacular scenery and some great attractions along the way, so I'm sure that our listeners will be stopping very often to take photos. And one of the things that you've done with the Grand Tour is you've made it really easy for people to spot the most scenic photo points. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Absolutely. So this is those Grand Tour photo spots that we have outlined in the most scenic viewing points along the route. So we keep talking about those highlights, but also we want to make it easy for people to find those highlights. And those photo spots are the perfect place to take a break during the road trip. Get out of the car, breathe some fresh air, and of course take a nice souvenir photo. So at present we have around 60 of those photo spots along the route, and the number is continuously growing. Look out for those photo spots and make sure you get a nice picture for your socials. Mm-hmm. Again, we have a link as always. We have a lovely web link there for to find more information, and that's myswitzerland.com/photospots. So just check out the link and you can find all the locations where they are.
Yeah, and for people that aren't familiar with those photo spots, it's like a photo frame with nothing in it,
Nothing in it. They're waiting for you to be in it.
That's right. So you can either frame the view with around the photo frame, or you can stand in it yourself. And
exactly, you can't miss them. You can't miss them. So red frame with the Grand Tour logo on the top of it, and then you see where they stand. It's usually a really nice scenery in the background, or something really nice, worth seeing. Yeah.
Is the Grand Tour suitable for all types of vehicles?
So the Grand Tour of Switzerland route is fundamentally aimed at cars and motorcycles, and any other larger vehicles like coaches or large caravans, they might have to face restrictions. So there's a list with alternative routes on our website if you decide to use a bigger vehicle than a car for the Grand Tour. And what many people don't know as well is that the Grand Tour of Switzerland is the world's first road trip for electric vehicles as well. So we have a dense network of charging stations, which ensures power over the entire route, and consequently guarantees comfortable and clean driving pleasure for the whole duration of the trip. So but I think we'll talk about this in a minute, but it's definitely like an e-Grand Tour, electric Grand Tour as well, that's on offer for electric cars.
That's great.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so it's possible then to rent e-vehicles in Switzerland, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Exactly. So you can rent them. There's a package as well that you can book. They book with all the major tour operators or travel agents, where you can hire the electric car and then do the same trip, but just with an electric car. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great to know, because those people that were possibly thinking, that traveling by train is a bit more sustainable, driving a car that's no good for the environment. So that's having the opportunity to rent an e-vehicle and do the e-Grand Tour. That's a great option for them. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah.
You mentioned before that the Grand Tour covers or crosses 5 mountain passes. So for those people who aren't used to driving over mountain passes, what tips do you have for them?
Well, at the end of the day, be careful. I mean, it's, we talk about mountain passes. Some of these mountain passes are really sort of narrow. It's like windy little roads going up the mountain, then down the mountain again. And depending on traffic, just look out for especially motorbikes, because you can't really see them very well. And look out for other people in the street. But in general, it's all very safe, and it's doable. It's doable for everybody. For free alpine passes as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. And those alpine passes obviously are only open in the summer anyway, because they're usually covered in snow in winter.
That's right. I mean, some of them are open, but most of them are closed, depending on the snow situation. But it's all, again, this is signposted quite clearly when, in case one or the other pass will be closed, there will be signposted beforehand, so you can always find an alternative route as well on your trip. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any other tips or things that we should know about the Grand Tour?
Maybe one. No, it's not a fun fact, really. It's a true fact. The Furka Pass, which is one of the mountain passes, which connects the canton of Uri with the canton of Valais, is featured in the James Bond movie Goldfinger in 1964. So there's this one car chase, if people remember the film, where Bond is chasing the Bond girl, I suppose, along the mountain pass. That's a Furka Pass, and that one is one of the passes along the Grand Tour as well. So that's definitely something to check out along the trip.
Okay. Now, in a minute, I'd like to ask you if you have a favourite leg of the Grand Tour, but I did want to just mention a couple of other legs that people might be interested in doing if they're not going to do the whole Grand Tour route. So one of interest, I mentioned before the Rhine Falls, and legs 4 and 5, you can actually drive from Zurich to St. Gallen. And that route visits Schaffhausen, which is very close to the Rhine Falls, the beautiful medieval village of Stein am Rhein, and then heading into St. Gallen. So that and that one is 175 kilometres with those 2 legs combined. So that is a nice little excursion for someone who wants a shorter sort of trip. Another one, which you're probably very familiar with, legs 6, 7 and 8, go from Appenzell to St. Moritz through Mayenfeld, which you mentioned when you were on a previous podcast episode that's where you come from.
That's right. It's probably one of my favourites. I must say, we have to be impartial here at Switzerland. Isn't it? It's definitely one of the most beautiful legs along. No, seriously, it's just nice because you have all these you go from down the lake and then into Appenzell with these really really old villages from the Middle Age, and then you go up the mountains, really like up on 1,800 meters above sea level in some rates. It's just a stunning scenery along the route. Absolutely.
Yeah, and apart from it being your birthplace, would you like to tell us what Mayenfeld's other claim to fame is?
Mayenfeld, what's famous is the famous Heidi story.
Mm-hmm.
So, the famous Heidi, the little girl from the Swiss mountains. That story was actually written in Mayenfeld. And the author, she was inspired by the fresh air, the mountains, the scenery and everything. And, hence she chose Mayenfeld as the place where she wrote her book. And nowadays, so it's obviously one of the most famous children stories in the world. And there's far more there. We have beautiful wine. There's a beautiful accommodation experiences. Skiing is not far, so it's only a stone throw away from all the ski resorts around that part of the country. So it's it's a stunning place to go around and explore.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and one other little area I'd like to mention is legs 22, 23, and 24, which go from Neuchâtel through to Interlaken and passing Meier, which is the medieval town there, the beautiful city of Fribourg, Gruyères, which many visitors love to visit for the cheese and chocolate and the castle, and then through Stade and to Interlaken, the holiday hub of the Jungfrau region.
That's right, yes. Yeah.
So
that's another stunning leg, absolutely.
Yeah, and that has lots of places that tourists like to visit.
That's right. I mean, it's just the lakes. You mentioned it before. There's so many lakes. Just on this one leg, you pass about 3-4 legs, maybe even more, and ending up in Interlaken, which is Interlaken, as it just says, interlake between the two lakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one stunning feature of that tour. But then, of course, the village is absolutely stunning. So that's probably one of my favorite. One of my favorites along the Grand Tour. You have these old medieval villages which are they're still like back in the day. So you walk through there, like Murten, for example. You walk through the old town. It's well preserved. It's really like it was back in the day. And I think that's certainly one thing which makes this tour so unique, I think.
Yeah. So what is your favourite leg or legs?
Well, I've got one particular favourite leg, which is probably stage 3, which is the route from St. Moritz to Lugano, because it has the biggest change in altitude. So you go from, like we said before, from alpine St. Moritz, which is more than 1,800 meters above sea level. You drive down to the palm tree lined streets of Lugano at 270 meters above sea level. So just the fact that you cover such a high altitude in a short amount of time is just incredible. And there's more to that. You have different language regions. So we start in St. Moritz, in the Engadine Valley, where they speak Romansh predominantly. And then you go through the Italian, the Swiss German speaking part, and you end up in Lugano, which is the Italian speaking part of the country. So that's gives you this whole experience of different flavors, different tastes, different food and culture and everything in one short part of the Grand Tour, which is incredibly nice. And
quite a changing climate too.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Make sure you pack accordingly your suitcases with warm stuff, and then less warm stuff in Lugano. That's right.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Now, for people who are interested in going ahead and booking the Grand Tour, can they do that easily through the My Switzerland website?
Yes, that's pretty easy. So if you go on our website, myswitzerland.com/Grand Tour, and you scroll down, and you should see a button where you can book the Grand Tour. So that's quite easy. You can book the Grand Tour, the classic one, like we just explained. But then there's also an option to book the E-Grand Tour, which is the one with electric vehicles. So that's a separate, separate package, if you want, that you can book. And then depending on where you are in the world, you can obviously use your local travel agent, your tour operator, travel company to book it directly locally. So that's a package that can be booked worldwide. Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Well, I'll include all those links in the show notes for this episode. And perfect. I hope that we've encouraged people to get out there and book their car and do their own road trip around Switzerland.
Let's hope so.
Thank you very much, Livio. It's been great speaking to you again.
Likewise. Thank you, Caroline. And speak to you soon, hopefully.
Are you ready to set off on your own Grand Tour of Switzerland? If you've never driven in Switzerland before, there are a few general road rules that you should be aware of. So I thought I'd answer some of the most commonly asked questions about driving in Switzerland. What side of the road do they drive on in Switzerland? Well, just like in the rest of continental Europe, vehicles drive on the right-hand side of the carriageway in Switzerland. Many folks are keen to know if there are toll booths in Switzerland. And whilst there are no toll booths on motorways in Switzerland, each vehicle travelling on these roads must have a road tax sticker affixed to the windshield. If you are collecting your rental car in Switzerland, it should already have this road tax sticker, which is called a vignette, on the windshield. But if you are entering Switzerland from another country and you need to purchase a vignette, they are available from service stations or gas stations at the Swiss border. You'll see road signs advising of the need to purchase one as you approach Switzerland. The vignette costs 40 Swiss francs and it's valid for the current calendar year and until 31 January the following year. If you are pulled over on the motorway by the police for any reason and you don't have a vignette on your vehicle, you will be fined. Another commonly asked question is, what is the speed limit in Switzerland? Well, on motorways, the speed limit is 120 kilometres per hour or 75 miles per hour. And in most cases, it's 100 kilometres per hour on main roads, 80 kilometres per hour on normal roads outside of towns, and 50 kilometres per hour within towns. And yes, all distances and speeds are measured in kilometres in Switzerland. Speed cameras are used throughout the country, so make sure you don't go over the speed limit. I speak from experience in saying that fines are sent to your home address if you are caught speeding, whether you meant to speed or not. And a speeding ticket is a Swiss souvenir that you really don't want. Now, you might be wondering if an international driving permit is required for Switzerland. Well, unlike most other European countries, Switzerland does not require drivers from abroad to carry an international driving permit. If you are pulled over by the police, you will only be required to show your valid licence issued in your home country. You'll find lots more tips for driving in Switzerland in my comprehensive guide on holidaystoSwitzerland.com. I cover everything from how to get the best car hire deal to things to check before you drive off in your rental car, plus tips on parking, refuelling, border crossings, and much more. I'll include a link to the driving guide and my guide to the Grand Tour of Switzerland in the show notes. I'll also include links to the official Grand Tour website that Livio mentioned, with details on how to book your own Grand Tour of Switzerland package and where to buy the Grand Tour of Switzerland travel guide. You can find the show notes for this episode at holidaystoswitzerland.com/episode 45. If you missed Livio's first appearance on the podcast, make sure you listen to episode 42 to learn more about some of the traditions and customs that are unique to Switzerland, as well as the country's UNESCO World Heritage Sites. That's a really interesting episode, and you'll find plenty of places and customs and festivals that you'll probably want to include in your itinerary. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope it's given you the inspiration to hit the road and do your own grand tour of Switzerland. Until next time, happy travel planning. Bye for now.
If you'd like more great resources to help you plan your dream trip to Switzerland, there are lots of ways to connect with us. Visit our website, holidaystoSwitzerland.com, sign up for our monthly newsletter, or join our friendly, helpful community of past and future travellers in our Switzerland travel planning group. You'll also find the links to connect with us in the show notes for this episode. Show notes and a list of all previous episodes are available at holidaystoswitzerland.com/podcast. Don't miss out on your fortnightly dose of Swiss travel inspo. Hit the subscribe button on your favourite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave a rating. That's all for this edition of the Holidays to Switzerland Travel Podcast. Thanks for joining us and happy travel planning.